Let me take you back to 17 Jan 2013, just 6 days after Sara Sharif was born. In a court proceeding, it was stated, quote, whilst the guardian is satisfied that there may be reasonable grounds to believe that the children are likely to suffer significant harm, the advantages of the children remaining at home should be weighed against the potential harm to the children of removal. Unquote. This haunting statement shows how social services were aware of the abusive and poor living conditions of Sarah and her siblings, but failed to take substantial action. Welcome to Crime Stories of Pakistan with your hosts, Jehan and Naz. I usually do not prefer covering cases that are well known, but this case was specifically requested by Ibrar, and if it's what our listeners want, then it's what our listeners will get. So, shout out to Ibrar for suggesting this heartbreaking case. Urfan Sharif, originally from jail in Pakistan, moved to the UK in 2003 to study business management. In December 2007, Urfan was arrested on charges of false imprisonment, theft, and criminal damage. His accuser was an 18-year-old Polish girl whom he had allegedly been dating since 2004. And this basically means that when they started dating, she was only 15. But she told the police that he had held her in her bedroom against her will. He locked the door and he would yell and shout at her, stating, quote, don't go to your friends and I want to see you always at home, unquote. And while he would be yelling and screaming at her, he would be squeezing her face. And then she also claimed that he threatened her with a knife, saying, quote, shut your mouth or I'll kill you, unquote. Urfan denied the allegations, stating that she had assaulted him instead, and despite the severity of the claims, no action was taken against him. 2 years later, in March 2009, another Polish woman, Anna, who was 31, emailed Surrey police after fleeing Urfan's home and returning to Poland. Once again, he was questioned, but no further action was taken. During this time, Urfan worked part time at Burger King and part time as a taxi driver. By August 2009, so 5 months after the incident with Anna, while working at Burger King, he met Olga Dumin, yet another Polish woman. Despite her limited English and having learning disabilities, they quickly formed a relationship and married later that year. It seems as if Irfan deliberately sought relationships with vulnerable Polish women to maintain his stay in the UK, but that's just a speculation. Once he married Olga, we know that he's already been physically abusive, so it's to no one's surprise. Olga's mother became very concerned for her daughter's safety, so she contacted the police in 2010. When the police questioned Olga, she admitted to officers that Urfan had been violent towards her on multiple occasions. Urfan claimed that Olga had attacked him first, framing himself as a victim, a recurring pattern in his defense. The relationship with Olga was very complex, very toxic. And because Olga was struggling with her own frustrations and challenges, it does seem like she would also respond with aggression. So it would somehow end up in like a mutual violence situation. But again, even if she was trying to defend herself, Urfan's violent streak was so much more aggressive and so much more brutal. So, after she confessed to the police that Urfan had been violent towards her on multiple occasions, eventually she withdrew her allegations and Urfan was released on bail. And just by the way, during all of this, Olga and Urfan had their first two children, who were referred to as Z and U. Sometime within the same year that Irfan was arrested. Zed was found wandering alone in a shop. Social services intervened, but these interventions were often temporary. Later that year, Irfan was arrested for assaulting both Olga and Zed during an argument, and it had said that he had hit the toddler so hard that Zed actually had a handprint that was left on his back. He's vile. Between 2011 and 2012, reports of neglect and abuse escalated. Zed told his teachers, quote, "Daddy hit me." And then a year later, he stated, quote, "Mommy hit me." Social workers, they noted that there were unexplained injuries on both Zed and Yu. Yet instead of removing the children permanently, the system continued placing them in temporary foster care before returning them back to Olga and Urfan. I just do not understand why that decision was made. But Sara Sharif was born on January 11, 2013, at Wexham Park Hospital in Slough. She was a beautiful, bubbly child, bringing joy to those around her. But her early years were overshadowed by the chaos at home. Shortly after her birth, Zed suffered a burn from an iron. Social workers were involved yet again, and when they inspected their house, they found the family home devoid of basic necessities. There were no light bulbs, no proper bedding for the children, no children toys. In fact, this family of five, Olga, Irfan, Zed, Yu, and now Sarah, who was a newborn at this time, they were all sharing one bed. And somehow, despite these appalling conditions, the children were still returned to their parents in September 2013 under a 12-month supervision order. And to top it off, Irfan and Olga, they promised to attend parenting courses and refrain from physical punishment. It's insane. The child is complaining of daddy hitting me, mommy hitting me. He shows up with a handprint of his father's hand on his back. He's now suffered from a burn from an iron. Their living conditions are horrible, and yet they were allowed to go back and live with their parents. When Sarah was only 2, she, Zed, and Yu were taken into foster care again after Zed had reported being bitten very hard by Olga and pinched and punched by Irfan. So remember, Sarah's been into foster care twice and she's not even 2 yet. Their foster carers noticed what appeared to be cigarette burns on both Sarah and Yu, but Irfan and Olga claimed that these were just scars from chickenpox. At a hearing for an emergency protection order for the children, it was revealed that Zed was distressed. He was shaking when Olga picked him up. He said, quote, "I don't want to go home. Mommy hit." And then the day before they were supposed to go back to their parents, he told his sibling Yu, quote, "The man is going to hit us now," unquote. Social workers, they also noted disturbing behaviors in Sarah as well. Like she was observed standing still, facing a wall. She did not respond when carried. Reports described her as a very small child. She was eating very little. She was very unresponsive to physical affection. And this is all very unusual considering she's only 2. And like I mentioned, the children, they were just switching from foster care to living with their parents. And they would be taken away for a few days or weeks or months and then sent right back into that toxic, abusive, violent environment. It's so strange that despite social services and child protection services and the police being involved, the children would always be returned back to their parents who clearly were not capable of providing a safe, secure, enriched environment one could call home. Shame on the judge who, despite knowing everything, knowing the history of this family, chose to hand the children back to Irfan and Olga. But this time, only Sarah and Yu returned back to their parents because Zed refused and he said he's going to remain in foster care. He's not going. In 2015, Olga accused Irfan of hitting her and the children, as well as being controlling and violent. These allegations were never tested in court, but Irfan agreed to attend a domestic violence course. I'm just baffled by the authorities. It just blows my mind. These are such major red flags that could have really changed the course of Sarah's life. It's just so sad that the authorities just they didn't do their job. Much later on, in an interview in 2024, Olga told TVN24, a local news channel, quote, "There was a situation when Irfan told me not to go anywhere. I said I was going because my friend was waiting for me. He started to strangle me with a belt then. He tried to set me on fire once. He poured oil on me, but my cousin stopped him. And he simply locked me in a room. He locked me up for the whole day until the police arrived. When they showed up, he pretended that nothing had happened, that the door was open, unquote. One of Olga's siblings alleged that Urfan was an alcoholic and a gambling addict. Quote, it was just to hide the abuse, meaning the religious act was just to hide the abuse. He wasn't religious at all. But in 2019, the couple formally separated. Sara and Yu went to live with Olga in a women's refuge. Irfan would visit according to his supervision schedule. By this time, he was working full time as a taxi driver. But during one such visit, it was reported that Sara shouted at Irfan, asking him to go away, while Yu told social workers that Irfan had, quote, hit Mummy in the mouth and made her bleed, unquote. So one might think that living with her mother, Olga, would mean Sarah could finally find some stability. But unfortunately, the reality was far more heartbreaking. Olga, who I mentioned had learning difficulties, struggled as a single parent. While her challenges might have made parenting even more difficult, it's undeniable that neither Olga nor Irfan should ever have been parents. In Easter of 2019, Sarah confided in her father. She stated that her mother had been violent towards her. Family court documents recorded that Sarah had told them her mother tried to drown her, burn her with a lighter. She also stated that she was slapped, pinched, and her hair pulled by Olga. At this point, social services, who had already been involved numerous times before, they were suddenly in this dilemma of deciding, who should Sarah live with? Like, which devil is better for the children to live with? I just don't understand. Why weren't the children removed from both the parents? Why didn't they remain in foster care? Not that foster care is a better condition. We've heard so many cases where foster care has its own challenges, but it's such a devastating indictment of the UK's child protection system. I mean, we know Irfan Sharif's long history of violence. We know that Olga is also violent. Why why would they send back? Why were they kept with their parents? I just don't understand. So unfortunately, despite knowing the history of violence, the judge somehow thought it was better that Sarah and her younger sibling Yu should move back in with their father, Irfan Sharif, and stepmother, Binish Batul. So in October 2019, Farah was sent back to live with her father. Irfan and Binish, they had been together since 2014, but they started living together by 2015 in walking. By the time Sarah and Yu had come to live with them, their household had already grown. In January 2016, the couple welcomed twins, both of whom were later diagnosed with autism and development delays. As the twins grew older, their behavior became increasingly challenging. In December 2018, they had another son who suffered from ill health, adding further stress to an already volatile household. Now, with three children of their own, plus Sarah and Yu, the Sharif Batul household was stretched thin, emotionally, financially, and psychologically. Olga consented to the arrangement. As part of the court's decision, she was granted 2 hours of supervised contact every Saturday, with Binish Batul, overseeing the visits. However, this arrangement quickly deteriorated. The supervised visits with Olga eventually broke down, severing her contact with Sarah entirely for the next 4 years. And this is what she says, quote, I was supposed to have visits and normal rights to the children. At first, the contact was normal. I would go to the children and they would always wait for me. Finally, the stepmother, Binish Batul, wrote that I should not come because the children did not want to see me. It is not normal that one day the children would be happy and talk to their mother, and suddenly the children would not talk to me on the phone and would call me names. Unquote. Olga observed significant changes in Sarah, noting that she had began practicing Muslim religious traditions. While such a shift might not appear troubling on its own, it symbolized the profound influence of her new environment. By this time, Urfan was 41 years old and Binish Batul was 29. Olga claimed she contacted social services to ask them to provide her with support. But they said, quote, The children did not want to see me, and there was nothing they could do about it, and that all I could do was wait, unquote. But if you think that this is not bad already, it's gonna get so much more worse. So by 2017, Urfan and Binish were living in a small ground floor flat in West Byfleet, where they stayed until April 2023. So we know that they had three children of their own, and then Sarah and you. And then in July 2022, they welcomed another son. By the time Sarah was 6 or 7, she had essentially become the family's maid. She was tasked with washing clothes, hanging them to dry, tidying and cleaning the house, and she played a significant role in looking after her youngest brother, the newborn. These were not just occasional chores, but a daily burden forced upon a child far too young to bear such a responsibility. While Beanish would occasionally buy clothes for Sarah that matched those of the twins, these moments were very rare. Now, key evidence of this case comes from WhatsApp messages that were between Beanish and her sisters. In these messages, Beanish very regularly shared pictures of Sarah's bruises and described how Irfan would go crazy and beat her. These chats not only revealed the extent of Sarah's abuse, but also showed that it was a recurring and horrifying part of her daily life. And remember, I had talked about an image where while Sarah was in foster care, she was standing motionless, facing the wall, she had her hands up in the air. So, in these WhatsApp messages, Beanish confessed to her sisters that Urfan would design unpleasant punishments for her, like, yep, you guessed it, standing against a wall, holding her arms up, and even making her do sit ups. This piece of shit would wake Sarah up in the middle of the night just to physically punish her. So between 2020 and 2022, Beanish repeatedly messaged her sisters describing how Urfan would beat the crap out of Sarah, leaving her covered in bruises, and at times she was unable to walk. So I'm just going to go through the few that I found. May 9th, 2021, Beanish. Urfan beat the crap out of Sarah, and my mind is in all bits. Kandila. What did she even do? Beanish. She hit the keys where the cigarettes are. Kandila. Rolling eyes emoji. Why doesn't Sarah learn? Don't be dumb. Beanish. Why the hell doesn't Urfan learn? She is covered in bruises, literally beaten black. I feel sort for Sarah. Poor girl can't even walk. She literally fainted in the kitchen in the morning. He made her do sit ups or God knows what all night. It's been so crazy, man, you don't even understand. Kandila. If you will be good to them, Allah will give you more. What the hell? The hell? What kind of response is that? If my sister told me that her husband went batshit crazy and beat up their child, my response would not be rolling eyes emoji. Why doesn't that child learn? Don't be dumb. The child is 6, 7. What the? I just. February 21st, 2020. Beanish. Urfan had an anger attack again. Kandila. Oh, why? Beanish. We got there an hour late because of traffic. Kandila. Oh, okay. Why did he get angry? Beanish. Kids were annoying him and he wasn't feeling well. Kandila. Lol, joker. Beanish. Just he's annoying. In one of these exchanges, Beanish confessed that she once had to physically push Urfan out of the way to protect Sarah from further harm. Another exchange of messages from June 2022 shows that Beanish would conceal the bruises by applying makeup on the bruises and making Sarah wear dark glasses. Beanish. Schools are worried about Sarah, so Urfan has to take her in at 3. Kandila. Oh gosh, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? Batul. I'm not going. He's going to take her. Urfan told me to cover it up with makeup and she's going to wear sunglasses. Kandila. Okay, lol. What's going to happen? You can tell. Oh my god. And by the way, if anyone in the family or friends or neighbors they asked, "Oh my god, what is wrong with Sarah? Why does she have these bruises?" Beanish would claim that Sarah was being bullied at school. In the same month of 2022, There's another exchange of messages between Binish and Kandila. Binish. Sara's body is literally bruised because Irfan beat her up. I can't even cover it up. He beat Sara up yesterday, and I can't send her to school on Monday looking like that. You haven't even seen her body. It's a whole lot worse. When her sister urged her to reconsider, Batul replied, quote, I have no choice. The social services will get involved. Binish would also report to her sisters that she believed that Sara had a jinn, a demon inside her, to kind of deflect from the situation, saying, oh, she's causing this, there's something wrong with her, she has a demon inside her, which kind of gives you this justification that she's being treated this way because she deserves it, and you're just isolating her more, dehumanizing her more. And despite this knowledge and witnessing the abuse firsthand, Binish, the sister Kandila, none of them contacted the police, none of them contacted social services. They just turned a blind eye. And just going through Kandila's responses, it is so, there is no concern. Like when Binish says that she's worried, she's covered in bruises, we're gonna just put makeup on her to cover her bruises and wear sunglasses, tell her to wear sunglasses. Kandila's response was, okay, lol. Lol? What is lol about this situation? And then saying, oh, it was gonna happen. We knew it was gonna happen, so why are you surprised? Why do you have no empathy? Where is your humanity? So the WhatsApp messages were key in kind of painting a picture of what Sarah went through. Binish would also share pictures and videos. There was a chilling video that was presented to the jury showing Binish holding her newborn son, and Sarah is sitting beside her. And Sarah is trying to, just engage with the baby. But Binish, instead of being like, okay, that's sweet, Sarah's trying to interact with the newborn, Binish can be seen repeatedly slapping Sarah away. And in that same video, Sarah can be seen with a very visible bruise on her forehead. And then in another segment of that video, Urfan is seen slapping Sarah 4 times across her cheeks. Then there were case records that revealed that Sarah began vomiting food and occasionally soiling herself, which obviously are clear signs of the profound trauma she was enduring as a result of the abuse. And instead of showing concern or seeking help, Binish would respond by instructing Urfan to beat Sarah even more. It just gave Binish and Urfan a reason to punish her more. And Binish would actually call up Irfan and tell him to come home and sort it out, which basically was her encouraging him to further harm Sarah. Then in December 2022, Binish's brother Faisal Malik arrived in the household. He had come from Pakistan to undertake a postgraduate course, and he too witnessed the abuse, but he never reported it to social services, he never reported it to the police. And in fact, he even claimed that he never knew what was happening because he always had headphones on. So it's very essential to emphasize the failure of multiple individuals and institutes in this case, particularly the adults within the Sharif family, Urfan, Olga, because where the fuck are you? Why are you not fighting to see your kids, knowing that your husband is abusive, your ex is abusive? Binish, as you have clearly heard, like she's concerned, but it's not concerned enough to change it. And she's actually participated in making Urfan beat her more. Faisal, who claims he didn't know, had no clue, and also Binish's sisters, especially Kandila, who was so dismissive, who would roll her eyes when she heard, oh, Sara is being abused again. Furthermore, the social services, despite being involved more than 4 times, they did not monitor Sara's well being. The police, who knew about Urfan's violent nature but never bothered to keep a check. The judges, who decided it was best for the children to be returned to the father, knowing his history. They too failed to protect Sara. They're responsible for what happens to Sara. A neighbor of the Sharif family, Rebecca Spencer, described them as a nightmare family. She told the court she had heard banging and hysterical screaming. On one occasion, when it reached fever pitch, she told jurors she had gone to the address to ask if everything was okay. Beanish Batul told her, "Yes, yes," before she had the door shut in her face. She had also mentioned that she would hear someone trying to open the door, like it seemed like someone was locked in, and for hours she would hear someone trying to jiggle the doorknob, trying to like unlock the door. So we do know that Irfan has a habit of controlling the women by locking them in the room. So I'm speculating that probably he would beat Sarah and then lock her in the room for hours. Another neighbor, Chloe Redwin, told the court she had heard frequent smacking and yelling, as well as Binish Batul swearing. She said the only time it was quiet was when they were away on holiday. So at this time, Sarah was attending the local school, St. Mary's Primary School. And I just wanted to touch upon that a little bit as well. So while she's looking after her younger brother, cleaning the house, washing the clothes, being woken up in the middle of the night to be punished, and being beaten up mercilessly by her father, she's also going to school. I just cannot imagine what this young child would have gone through. It's just so devastating, so heartbreaking. Her class teacher, Helen Simmons, remembered that she didn't keep friends very easily, but said Sarah, quote, loved to be on the stage and singing and performing, and that was a happy space. Sarah also enjoyed being a member of the Cool Carers Club for children who took on more responsibility at home, unquote. Her head teacher, Miss Chambers, recalled Sarah as an absolute chatterbox who dreamed of being on the X Factor. Quote, we'll always remember her as that really confident, very smiley, full of energy and life little girl. She was a really vibrant, big character, and she would talk the ear of anyone who would listen. Unquote. While in school, Sarah's teachers began to grow concerned for her safety after noticing visible bruises on her face and body. So in March 2023, Mrs. Simmons was seeing injuries on Sarah's face. In fact, on March 10th, she saw a bruise on the underside of her chin and on one of her cheeks. Quote, they didn't look like fresh bruises, unquote. Sarah had said that she had fallen over on some roller skates, but she told one of her school friends that she had fallen off her bike. So Mrs. Simmons realized that there was inconsistency on how these bruises occurred. The school was worried enough to refer the incident to social services. Surrey County Council's Children's Services became involved in Sarah's case again, but after a 6-day investigation, the council told the school no further action was being taken but asked the school to monitor the situation. This is despite the fact that they know of the long history of allegations of violence in the family, the bruises and the scars that were visible, the involvement of the police as far back as 2010. Just monitor the situation, we can't do anything? Okay, thank you. On 28th March 2023, Sarah came to school with another bruise. Beanish told Miss Simmons that the injury had been caused by a pen. Every bruise that Sarah had, that the school witnessed, the school would record it. In April 2023, because now the school is very concerned, social services has also been involved. Irfan emailed the school saying Sarah will be homeschooled with immediate effect. So that's it. When teachers raised their concerns and Beanish and Irfan feared the involvement of social services, Sarah was taken out of school under the claim that she was going to be homeschooled instead. And then just to think about how, after being pulled out from school and no longer having to worry about anyone noticing the bruises and scars, how much more would have Sarah endured? Like, it's devastating to even consider how much more abuse Sarah suffered, knowing that the father now has no fear of authorities intervening. And just the thought of the scale of the abuse that Sara likely endured, it sends shivers down my spine just to imagine it. And in the next episode, we'll be talking about the postmortem, and it is hard. It is really it's bad, guys. It's just really bad. So what I did not mention is I know that I talked about the messages with Beanish and her sister. She covered the bruises with makeup. She would make Sara wear sunglasses. But if the bruises couldn't be covered with makeup or they were very severe, I had mentioned that there was a video that showed a very big bruise on Sara's forehead. Urfan would make Sara wear a hijab, a head cover. So later in the court proceedings, it had been revealed that the hijab, which is typically worn for religious reasons, was not used for that purpose in Sara's case. Instead, Sara was forced to wear the hijab to conceal the bruises and injuries she had sustained. And it's important to note over here, Beanish did not wear a hijab, nor did anyone else in Urfan's family. So the fact that Sara was made to cover her head, it speaks volumes about the intent behind it. It wasn't a religious practice, but a deliberate attempt to hide the physical signs of the brutal abuse she was suffering at the hands of her father. It has been noted that Sara was the only child in the household subjected to violent abuse and mistreatment, and there's likely two reasons for that. One is that Sara was the only daughter, and for her to be subjected to this mistreatment could be because of the deeply ingrained misogynistic mindset prevalent in certain cultural beliefs, where girls are often seen as a burden or a curse on the family, while boys are considered more valuable. And this is reflected in the fact that you, a male living child, is in that household, who is Sara's real brother, but he was never subjected to any such abuse. So the contrast in between the treatment of the son versus the treatment of the daughter, it kind of reinforces the claim that the abuse was driven by Sara's gender. Another thing is the fact that Beanish encouraged it and even allowed it, and sometimes even participated in it because Sara was not her biological child. Despite the twins, who were very difficult to deal with, had very challenging behaviors because of their development delays and them being autistic, they were never hit, they were never abused. But Sara was treated differently. And Beanish chose not to seek help or protection for Sara because she was fearful that if social services intervened, she might lose custody of all her children. In her mind, it was more important to keep her other children than to protect Sara, which basically meant that she was completely okay with sacrificing Sara instead of losing her children. And as for Irfan, he viewed his actions as his right to discipline Sara harshly. Sara, who has been described as a brave, spirited, and feisty child, she wasn't submissive and she stood up for herself. So, for someone like Irfan, who had such a fragile ego, Sara's defiance, it infuriated him, and he felt justified in using physical punishment to discipline her. That just further reinforces his belief that he had the right to assert control over her in whichever way he saw fit. In April 2023, Irfan, Beanish Vessel, and the six children, including Sara and you, moved to a three-bedroom house in Horsill Walking. It is also crucial to acknowledge that these assaults were carried in front of the other children, and Sara would be beaten in front of them. Her screams could be heard. In fact, even the neighbors heard it. And both the properties were very small. So it's very clear that everyone living there knew about the torture and abuse that Sara endured. In fact, reports also suggest that Sara's older brother, Yu, he was also fully aware of the constant mistreatment of his sister, and it really had a profound impact on his own behavior towards her, the negative behavior he had towards her. So this clearly shows that the abuse was not hidden. In fact, it was a part of the environment Sara was forced to live in, with no one stepping in to protect her. On 25th May 2023, this is 3 months before Sara was found dead, Beanish received a message from her sister. Kandila, is everything okay? Beanish, no. Irfan beat the crap out of Sara. Kandila, rolling eyes emoji. What did she do? Beanish, her oxygen level dropped really low. She's finding it hard to stay awake. Kandila, did he hit her on her head? Beanish, nah, but she's breathing really rapidly. Beanish's sister blocked her on WhatsApp on August 11th in 2023, a day after Sara's body was found. And here is where I will end part one of this episode. This episode is so intensely heavy, and the one that is to follow this episode is even worse. But again, shout out to Ibrar for suggesting this heartbreaking case. Thank you for tuning in to Crime Stories of Pakistan with your host, Shehan Naz. We deeply appreciate your patience and support. It truly means the world to both of us. We have a long list of cases in our backlog, but the moment one of our listeners suggests a case, it becomes our top priority to research, script, and bring it to you. As we are only a two-person team managing everything from start to finish, it really takes a lot of time to deliver each episode, but your encouragement and support keeps us going. So here's a big shout out to all our amazing listeners. You guys are the best. If you have any case suggestions or stories you'd like to share, you can connect with us on Instagram at Crime Stories of Pakistan or send us an email at crimestoriesofpakistan@hotmail.com. As always, stay safe, be kind in this chaotic world, and never stop being curious while listening to Crime Stories of Pakistan with your hosts, Naz and Jehan. Bye, guys.